Hello and welcome to the Daily Exchange. My name is Harry Tucker, filling in again today for Fred Shabesta. Today, coming up, we got 51% attacks explained, plus a look at the market. Also on today's show, the US SEC has declared November 5th as deadline for Bitcoin's ETF decision. Tron has announced Odyssey 3.1 upgrade with some seriously big claims. Binance reveals its listing fees and charitable intentions, and a Chinese man has been arrested for stealing train power to mine BTC. But before we start, send us your skeptic questions. All that and coming up, all that more, is coming up right now. Now, before we jump into today's news, I just want to let you know that next week we'll be hosting our very first Skeptics panel with none other than the highly acclaimed Matt Barry, who is, of course, the founder and chief executive of both freelancer.com and escrow.com. Now, that'll be live on here with Fred and Matt on this show next week. So stay tuned for the date. Now, Barry himself actually taught cryptography at the University of Sydney for 15 years. He's quite an outspoken critic of cryptocurrency, and his deep understanding of cryptography and computer science makes his stance quite a surprise for some, as well as making him an excellent guest to launch our first Skeptics episode with. But with that, we need your, earpiece is falling out. We need your help. What questions would you like us to ask Matt? What topics would you like us to discuss? Get as controversial as you like. Let's leave no stone unturned. So make sure to leave your questions in the comments below and be sure to tune in next Tuesday when we go live with our first ever Skeptics panel. But let's get into the markets. Now, markets are looking a gentle mix of red and green, mostly red, with most swings looking quite mild, though volume data from Cointelegraph and Coin360 indicates the trade volume is actually at its lowest point in 13 months, which may have something to do with the relatively stagnant prices. Now, as the Bitcoin wedge continues to tighten with no major news on the horizon, the market looks set to continue this way for a little while. Now, Bitcoin itself is down 1%, down to $6,561. XRP is down 5%, one of the bigger ones in the top 5 there with quite a loss, followed by Bitcoin Cash, which is down 2%. But speaking of major news with Bitcoin, the US SEC finally set a timeline this week to review 9 Bitcoin ETFs. The SEC has set a deadline of November 5th to review the ETF proposals. Following that announcement, the SEC has also asked for the public to come forward with comments in support or opposition to these proposals. Now, the ETFs, of course, give investors exposure to the performance of Bitcoin without actually having to own the asset itself. As ETFs will be traded on the US stock market, many speculators have pinned their hopes for an increase in Bitcoin's price on the approval of an ETF, which makes November 5th a very big date in many traders' diaries. Now, Bitcoin prices are continuing to trade sideways in an ever-tightening wedge pattern. Now, analysts are agreed that a breakout is now well overdue. However, the markets appear to be waiting for some sort of trigger. Now that an ETF decision date has been set, the market may finally have something to count down to. In fact, Bitcoin's price has been so sideways that some Reddit users have taken to calling it the industry's latest stablecoin. Bitcoin is currently trading for largely sideways trading, yeah. But if we look and continue with Tron. Earlier this week, the founder of Tron, Justin Sun, came out with an announcement that Tron's next software upgrade will make the network 200 times faster than Ethereum and 100 times cheaper than EOS. Now, as you can see by the tweet, Sun is clearly going after the dApp market with his latest update, which will include the release of the Tron virtual machine. Now, the virtual machine will allow developers to test smart contracts before deploying them onto the mainnet itself. Tron's own dApp tracking website, trondap.org, currently only lists 5 live dApps, which includes a blockchain explorer and BitTorrent, a program that was built a decade before the Trump white paper was even conceived, yet recently purchased by the Tron Foundation. Now, I'm just going to bring up now and have a look at what is actually on there. So if we pull it over on the screen, have a look at these projects here. So there's a couple more that have started to pop up. BitTorrent we just mentioned there is no, I wouldn't even count it as as a DApp really. It's been around for a decade. They've just happened to buy it and now they're putting it in the store. PO is an audio-based post-95 something social software. Look, there's really not a lot there. Things like a Tron wallet still in beta. A lot of things are in just prototype phase. And moving forward. So there's still a lot of work, and Tron obviously has to put in quite a bit of cash there to get that pumping, that community pumping, especially against Ethereum. And there's quite a few dApps popping up for EOS now as well. But given the lack of dApps, you can see why, like I said, Sunny's trying so hard to lure dApp developers over on Tron. But given that the tweet contained no link to documents or data to support that assertion, developers may actually want to wait for confirmation of these upgrades before jumping ship over to it. Although, in saying that, Trump surged up by 12% following the announcement. It has since retraced a bit, but still shows modest gains. Now, if we have a look here, Tron currently US TRX. Am I blind? TRX. Yeah, so it's down 3% in the last 24 hours, sitting at just over 2 cents per TRX. But onto exchanges. In a recent interview with the Bloomberg, Roger Ver says that Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash services outfit Bitcoin.com is looking to set up, or perhaps even buy, its very own crypto exchange. Also in exchange news, Singapore-based exchange Eureka Pro has launched in Singapore as a beta, but it allows some of the first fiat to crypto trading in the region, allowing users to purchase crypto directly with Singapore dollar, Malaysian ringgit, and Indonesian rupiah. Our upcoming 51%, there's going to be an upcoming 51% attack on the Einsteinium network to be live streamed. So there's a bit some quirky news, because Einsteinium is a little known coin which currently sits around 224th by market cap value, but it's making these headlines with someone announcing their intention to launch, as mentioned, a 51% attack on the cryptocurrency while actually live streaming the entire process. Now, a 51% attack is when someone uses a sizable amount of hash power and money to launch a specific type of cryptocurrency attack. And it's called a 51% attack because it typically depends on the attacker having control of at least 51% of the coin's network hashing power. Now, according to Crypto51, which estimates the cost for a 51% attack across a range of cryptocurrencies, an attack on Einsteinium actually comes pretty cheap at about $24 an hour. And you can do a few things with a 51% attack, but one of the most economically advantageous is akin to the old coin on a string trick, where you put a string on a coin, spending that coin in a vending machine, and then use the string to pull it back out. Except in this case, the coin is, of course, the cryptocurrency. The vending machine is an exchange, and the string is a lot of hashing power. So when attacking exchanges, the attack involves selling funds on the exchange, typically in exchange for Bitcoin, and then pocketing the Bitcoin as quickly as possible. Afterwards, the hacker can fork the network to recover their spent coins. Now, the attacker has both the Bitcoin and the original coins at the expense of the exchange. But word usually travels fast, and it's unlikely that someone can pull this off too many times before exchanges catch on. And in this case, the potential hacker has actually said those words somewhat quite loudly on the internet. As such, there are now only 3 exchanges left that are trading Einsteinium, with Polynex delisting it last month, no doubt realizing the potential for such an attack. Now, a 51% attack has the potential to seriously devalue a cryptocurrency, which would make a very sad end for Einsteinium. But markets are nothing if not irrational, and Einsteinium's price has actually grown up by like 30% in the past 24 hours, with over $5 million in volume, according to CoinMarketCap. Now, the world really is a strange place sometimes, especially in the crypto space. Now on to Binance, where it has announced its intention to disclose to the public the listing fees that cryptocurrencies must pay to get listed on the platform. In addition to this, the fees are now going to be passed on to Binance's charity wing, the Blockchain Charity Foundation. Now this is according to a blog post published yesterday, and it says that projects which hope to get listed on the platform will continue to propose their own fee, which essentially boils down to a silent auction style of bidding. Binance claims they will never suggest a price or dictate a minimum. Binance has long been at the center of speculation about what exchanges charge projects to get listed. Some commentators believe listing prices to reach extortional levels. A Bloomberg report from April suggested that fees at the time could have been as much as $1 to $3 million per exchange. Binance's charity wing, the Blockchain Charity Foundation, was launched quite recently with Helen Hay appointed as chair. Now, Hay has experience as a goodwill ambassador for the United Nations and has said the charity's first arena of focus will be in Africa. Blockchain has often been a lauded solution to bring transparency to the global charity industry, with criticisms of the industry include the misallocation of funds, poor transparency, and spending too much on bureaucracy rather than the charity's mission itself. Now, it'll be interesting whether Binance commits to using blockchain to add transparency in its own charity venture. Now, next up on the show is our segment Looking Global, where we take a look at the state of cryptocurrency and blockchain around the world and see what's making headlines. Now, we'll start off in Korea, where the Seoul mayor has announced a $100 million blockchain-powered city. This will be over a 5-year plan to turn the nation's capital into a blockchain-powered smart city. Now, Park Won-soon revealed over $100 million of funding would be allocated under his plan and would cover 14 public services, ranging from electoral voting to labor welfare. In addition to this, Won-soon also expressed his government's desire to spend another $50 million or so developing 2 building complexes, which would be large enough to house 200 blockchain startups by 2021. Now, this follows announcements in June this year by the South Korean federal government to dedicate $9 million to support blockchain development in the company to help improve public services. Now, from Korea, we go to China, where the government has announced plans for a blockchain standard to help standardize development in the country. Now, according to CCN, the China Electronics Standardization Institute will be in charge of drafting 3 standards to help streamline development across smart contracts, security, and deposits. Drafts are expected to be completed by the end of the year. With a quick search of CoinMarketCap showing that there are now well over 900 blockchain platforms, each running unique versions of software, it's no wonder China wants to bring harmony to the industry somehow. And last week we brought you the news that Venezuela was at last launching its controversial oil-backed state currency, the petro. Well, this week news has come in that the economically stressed nation has announced that passport fees must be paid with petros starting this week. Now, passport fees will be increased to 7,200 sovereign bolivars for new passports and 3,600 sovereign bolivars for extensions. This is equivalent, this is expected to equal 2 petros and 1 petro respectively. Anywhere else in the world, this might look like a clever way to encourage adoption of new technology amongst the population. However, in Venezuela, the move looks somewhat sinister. According to Bloomberg, the new fees are roughly 4 times the average minimum wage. Furthermore, petros are not expected to go on sale via exchanges until early November. How anyone will pay for a passport with an unlisted cryptocurrency is anyone's guess. Unfortunately, though, that may be exactly what the government wants. Bloomberg estimates that 5,000 people flee Venezuela each day amid its ongoing economic crisis. Now, moving across to the Middle East, where Dubai is set to release its Mcash payment system. Mcash is a state-backed digital currency which was developed by a subsidiary of the Dubai Department of Economic Development and several international blockchain firms. Now, Mcash is a stablecoin pegged to the United Arab Emirates fiat currency, the dirham. Cryptocurrency payment provider Pundi X will be rolling out 100,000 point-of-sale units across the country in the next 3 years. And this is to enable consumers in Dubai to spend Mcash. Citizens of Dubai will also be able to use the digital currency to pay for utilities, government bills, and schooling. And more news out of the UAE, where the National Securities Regulator has identified an opportunity for ICOs within the financial landscape, noting weak equities markets, low oil prices, and poor IPO performance. Now, the national regulator has identified ICOs as a way of bringing further capital into the nation and diversifying the ways in which companies can fundraise. The UAE is making sure to do things properly though, and while regulations are being developed, they are not being finalized until the first quarter of 2019. Now, the CEO of the National Securities Watchdog, Obaid Saif El-Zabi, said to Reuters that the board of the Emirates Securities and Commodities Authority, or ESCA, has approved considering ICOs as securities. As per our plan, we should have regulations on the ground in the first half of 2019. Interestingly, it appears that the UAE has already decided tokens sold via ICOs will constitute securities, while several nations in the West are still debating the legal status of tokens sold in ICOs over recent years. Now, Al-Zabi also noted that they're working with both the Abu Dhabi and Dubai stock markets to build an ICO trading platform. Now, it's unclear whether this exchange would extend to other cryptocurrencies or just securities launched within the UAE. Now, last, turning back home, where a collaboration between the CSIRO and Commonwealth Bank of Australia is aiming to make life easier for those on the National Disability Insurance Scheme. You might remember that the CSIRO is Australia's peak science body, and last week announced that it's going to be using the Red Belly blockchain, which has reached speeds of up to 30,000 transactions per second. However, in this project dubbed Smart Money, the CSIRO and CommBank aim to code blockchain tokens with smart contracts that inform insurance providers what payment a client is entitled to. According to a press release by the CSIRO, participants on the National Disability Insurance Scheme were chosen because individuals often have highly specific payment conditions, which is a perfect test for the technology. They said that in the NDIS, participants have individualized plans that can contain multiple budget categories, each with different spending rules. The prototype app supports participants to manage their plan by enabling them to find, book, and pay for services from NDIS service providers without the need for paperwork or receipts. Results about the trial will be released next month, in addition to further details about the design, limitations, as well as ideas for future applications of the system. Now, that actually is it for the news today. Before you go, we've got a story about a man stealing power from a railway to mine Bitcoin. Now, a man has been arrested for the usual crime of stealing power from a railway station to power his Bitcoin rig. Now, Cointelegraph reports that the man was siphoning power from a railway factory in November and December of last year. He was running 50 miners and 3 fans non-stop, which netted him around 17.5 grand worth of Bitcoin in that time. He also happened to net the railway factory an additional $14,500 on their electricity bill. And now he's actually been sentenced to jail for 3.5 years and has to pay back the money he's stolen. Now, it's an unusual crime, but not quite unheard of. Now, earlier this year in Russia, a group of nuclear engineers from a nuclear warhead facility were arrested after trying to use one of the country's most powerful supercomputers to mine Bitcoin. Next door in Ukraine, police officers were, this time in the middle of it all, where employees of the National Police were caught mining government resources. Mining on government resources for 4 months for being caught. And back in Australia, the AFP investigated staff at the Bureau of Meteorology for a similar crime. However, charges were never laid. And lastly, right here at Finder, rumours are a rogue member of staff turned an old printing room into a mining rig while no one was watching. Spoilers, it was actually Fred. We actually have like 2 mining rigs running in the printer room, just firing up there. I don't know what he's mining at the moment. We're doing ETH and I think Ravencoin for a while there, but it seems to change all the time. But anyway, last look at prices before we completely wrap up. Bitcoin, $6,561. ETH, $223. Bitcoin Cash, $505. EOS, $5.83 as we finalize up now. And a final reminder for everyone to leave their questions for the Skeptics episode in the comments below. But that's it for today. Thanks for joining in, everyone. We'll be back again this time tomorrow. See you then.